Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. The understanding of Nigeria's economic challenges and the antidotes to address them by the Bola Tinubu government was soon put to test after he announced upon resumption of office in May last year that subsidy is gone, an intervention critical to the lives of the citizenry. Although Nigerians have seen the efficacy or otherwise of the economic philosophy of the past Buhari administration, they are now grappling with the Tinubunomics and their application in solving complex and multidimensional effects of the two top policy options: fuel subsidy removal and harmonization of the nation's exchange rate being implemented by the government. As the Tinubu government and its economic team roll out their sleeves to confront the aftershocks of these policy options, which have pushed headline inflation to over 33% from 21.8% early last year, and surged its exchange rate from 650 to a dollar to 1,500 to a dollar within the same period, Nigerians are now witnessing some positive signs in the economy, with a steady recovery from worst to being a best-performing currency, as claimed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. There is also growing hope among the citizens of a possible drop in the pump price of petrol due to domestic oil refining output. But concerns remain on the sustainability of the rebound in the face of depleting foreign reserve and weak macroeconomic fundamentals. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging with a special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic matters in the office of the Vice President, Dr. Tope Fasua, on the positive signs in the economy and how government plans to sustain them in the face of global economic volatility. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So we'll take a short break, and when we return, the conversation begins. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. And Dr. Fasua, once again, thank you for coming.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. Understanding the Tinubunomics, before now we have the Buharinomics, and Nigerians have seen what it is in terms of its efficacy or otherwise. And now we are with the Tinubunomics. Let's get to understand, is it a philosophy in the first place?
Well, I'll probably say not, because Tinubunomics is a dynamic kind of economics, as it were. I was one of the first people who used that word, and that was way before the president became the president.
Right.
And that was based on many of his write-ups at his different colloquia on a yearly basis. I tried to trace the way he thinks and what he believes. And what I was able to distill was basically that he really believes in the people, believes that life could be a lot easier for the people, believes in Nigeria, believes in even the currency, the naira, as against those who would want to dollarize entirely. But that was one way of looking at Tinubunomics. The second way is the real way, boots on ground. Having become the president, you can now look at the effects of the economics that he, as well as others working with him, for example, coordinating minister, central bank governor, and co, have been able to put on ground and the effects on the people. However, so what happened when it came to presidency was because that he had to then, sign off on a couple of very hard policies. Like they say, you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. So he had to agree to the removal of subsidy on fuel, and also the unification of the naira. Actually, let's look at the naira. There was rather so many.
I wanted to ask a question before you proceed.
Okay.
You did say that he believes in the people. He believes in making. Better, to better the lots of the people.
Absolutely.
That's a sort of state intervention, so to speak.
No, not necessarily. Well, there has to be some state involvement. Even when you talk about Europe, America, and everything, there's state intervention. Forget what some of those guys come to tell us here. In the U.S., in the UK, in Europe, and all of that. There's still intervention, subsidies. Don't even talk about Greek, what they give the farmers. I probably may have said it before. In reading Joseph Stiglitz, in one of Joseph Stiglitz's book, Making Globalization Work, he wrote there that someone joked that it's probably better to be a cow in Europe than to be a human being in Africa, because a cow in Europe gets $3 every day.
Subsidy,
Subsidy every day. So how much does a human being get here? So Bola Tinubu doesn't believe in maybe subsidy just for the sake of it, but believes that it must be targeted. It's about the people, but that you cannot continue giving out subsidies if you're not also looking at the business side of things to say, okay, how are the businesses doing? How productive are the people? So that that subsidy may be sustainable. So, I mean, it's just a case of printing money and giving to people. What would they buy with it? You know, we saw some of those kind of policies fail in the past, you know. So, to a large extent, that's the kind of thinking. Now, I've been taking the bitter pill, which are important on Naira unification, on subsidy removal. Now is the phase where the people are going to expect the goodies to say, okay, where are the jobs? You know, are the jobs being created by the private sector? Are people getting real money that can pursue real goods and all of that? And then, you know, like they say, a ram would actually step back sometimes in order to come charging so that it can hit hard. And I think that's the phase we're getting into.
Okay, I'll take on that, you know, stepping back in order to hit hard, you know. But then, still talking about his belief and philosophy, you know, believe in the people. But these two policies are liberal policies, you know. So we find it extremely difficult to understand why someone who is a kinesis, so to speak, in his outlook, in
his thinking, in his outlook,
and then suddenly, you know, embrace liberal policies.
But you see that the liberalism that is at play now is not full liberalism. For example, remember that one time one of the multilateral agencies, they've been on Nigeria's case to increase the price to 750, to increase it to even something more than that. What did the government do? We slowed down on that. The government slowed down on that. President Tinubu personally said we can't continue doing this, you know. Even when we talk about the the electricity tariff, they only looked at the band A people, not everybody.
Even though there's controversy around that.
Yes, there's controversy around that, which can be resolved in time. And when you look at even the Naira, you know, it's not a case of just devaluing the Naira ad infinitum. It had got to about 1,900. And now we're going back to 1,000. I mean, it's almost 1,000. Lost a bit of ground, but gained it back. So we're around 1,100 now. So
it's part of the stepping back now, if I understand. Sorry? It's part of the stepping back now, if I understand what you're talking about.
So what happened here was that we were able to look at our peculiar situations to say who and who is playing in the market. There were guys who were playing in the crypto market and dictating the pace of the Naira. There were guys who were playing in the black market and doing anything they liked. There were BDCs that didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. And so in order to get back to this point, not only did the central bank ensure that it was able to fulfill many of its obligations, whether in terms of debt or in terms of,
$7
billion forward contracts and so on, it was able to do that. But they were also able to hammer those 4,173 BDCs. They were able to go after the guys in Binance. I mean, the second guy who was a fugitive, I understand, has been caught in Kenya, you know, and they were able to clean up the market. And that was exactly. So when you're dealing with an economy like ours, we're not exactly the USA. And you know what they won't tell you in the US or in Europe is that they have in place systems to manage liberalism. And they have learned lessons over time. Unfortunately, the teaching of economics these days excludes economic history, which is even more important. So I tell my friends, a very liberal economist type, who would rather just say, oh, the markets are perfect, the markets are these. I mean, come on, give us a break. You don't put an economy like ours in trouble by going in that direction. You have to look at what market are you talking about, who are the players in the market, and the central bank now steps in as an umpire to ensure that the market is played fair. That's what markets are about.
So in other words, the intervention is not also injecting liquidity in the market, like some say, even though the payment of the backlog, to a large extent, some felt, substantially did the magic. But in other words, and on another hand, it also depleted the foreign reserve.
Oh, no, certainly. Oh, no. Put it this way. Well, I don't actually agree with those who believe that just the payment of backlog alone was what did the magic. See, when you're talking about market, it's like doing business. You need a number of tools in order to do business, in order to regulate the market. You don't just face one direction and say, just because you're playing the backlog, because those guys are pushing a narrative, actually. Pushing a narrative that, oh, markets are perfect, it's just about fulfilling. And a lot of them are also at the backside of that, fulfilling the obligations. Because again, remember that the central bank paid until there was $2.4 billion, which they realized was fraudulent requests and demands on the government. And some of these people who are pushing this idea of liberal ideas, or uber liberal ideas, are also part of those who have been playing the market in that way. So it's not only that. They did not only pay the obligations. And remember also that the obligation we're talking about, there is also the debt obligation in terms of servicing. There were 3 major interventions in the last 3 months. One of them was $560 million. Another was $3.07 billion. Another was 1.18 or thereabout billion in terms of debt servicing, and also paying down on some debts that were due. So as against people who talk liberalism, and some will even bring up the example of Argentina, which has defaulted 20 times in its history. Nigeria has never defaulted, whether in terms of its debts or even in terms of anything. We have never defaulted, and that's very significant to note. So, but not only that, we were also able to, I mean, there was a time that the EFCC, the NSA, working with the CBN, the EFCC, were on the streets, you know, enforcing and ensuring that people did the right things and cleaning up the market. This is who we are. This is the stage we are as an economy, and we are not ashamed of it because we can only grow, you know, and I think we're on our way forward.
Right, okay, let's take you back a little bit, you know, talking about what led us where we are, because we have to look at where we're coming from and actually, and where we are right now.
Right.
You know, the removal of subsidy, fuel subsidy, was said to have been done, you know, to save some amount of money that hitherto
do what? To do
money, you know, that was hitherto being used to finance some, you know, shadowy claims, you know, corruption embedded and all of that. Today, Nigerians will want to know what exactly has been the result, the outcome of that savings, because they are yet to feel the impact. A number of them have been pushed into hardship. Just recently, the World Bank talked about 10 million that fall into the bracket.
They ought to know. We have to even be very careful taking numbers and stuff from some of those guys. And the same people who will advise you to devalue your currency will come back and tell you how you push your people into poverty. You know, I mean, so what should we have done?
That's the reason why you shouldn't.
And that's what I'm saying, that we didn't take their advices fully. And in allowing that to float to 1,900, following the market and, you know, trying to cover up, but then again, we have done the right thing to bring it back to 1,100 as it is. You know, so yes, again, I think that we need to then begin to own our own data. That's one thing we seem to be very, very afraid of, to own our data. So we're not just listening to, because hey, the truth is that if you know, we should know our own country better than some of these guys who make some of these statements. 10 million new people are poor. How?
But is it different from the 24 million that was given by the NBS last year?
Yeah, well, I think they're talking of additional people that are poor. The MBS numbers are usually markedly different from the World Bank and all of that. But I'm just saying that we need to own our data more, because whereas we can talk about temporary effects of some of these policies, there are also, do you know, I mean, just today I was reading in Daily Trust, you know, that the price of rice has dropped even further in the north, not just 54,000. Yeah. Now, you know, so who is measuring that? So if we own our own data, we don't have to wait for World Bank to give us any of the bad news, which goes global usually. And you know, the subject of poverty needs to be rediscussed in Nigeria to say, how does this occur and what are the measurements? If we're talking about $1 in Nigeria is $10 in the United States. What you would achieve with $1 here, you need $10 in the US to achieve that. Call it purchasing power parity. You know, but the point is that the people will live a much better life. However, our people don't listen to it. I was just watching something on my phone before I came on this program by Yusha Ushaibu, and you could see about 317 Nigerian men sleeping rough on the streets of Dublin, inside cartons and all of that, inside small tents.
Part of the
they left there and they were asking, one of them was saying, yes, we came to contribute our quota to the economy of Ireland. And I'm wondering, why can we not contribute the quota in our own economy? And we're talking about poverty here, you know what I'm saying? So look, is this poverty really that bad in this country? If it is, why are we not the ones pursuing it, getting serious, and to know how to reduce it, rather than wait for World Bank?
Yeah, but is it difficult to also understand the fact that the poverty is a reality in Nigeria? We've seen, even from the intervention government is providing.
Exactly.
Take for instance, the palliatives across states.
Right.
We've seen people scrambling for palliatives. Even dying in the process. We've seen that in Lagos, we've seen that in Bauchi, we've seen that in Nasarawa.
Shafiu, I was going to make the point that, look, if you look at the amount of palliatives, as I parked my car downstairs, I saw some guy packing, some palliative of vegetable oil and some rice, taking it in his car. And I'm wondering, there's been so many of these at every level in this country. But the truth is that doesn't stop people looting a warehouse if they knew there was something there. It's a very difficult psychological problem to solve. People will tell you, a lot of people may say they are hungry. They'll carry a bag of rice. It's in the house, but if there's another one to be carried, they put it still in the house, and they still tell you that, look, I'm hungry.
So I would say it's not a reality.
Now, I'm not saying that it's not entirely a reality, but it's something that needs to be managed. There's psychology there that it's one thing to be hungry. It's another thing to say that, look, there's the hunger that I need to have more because I think that tomorrow I'll be hungry. So we need to.
Isn't that what food security means?
We need to manage.
Food secure?
Exactly. Look, the food security is a big grammar that even it can only be understood by those who are in government talking about food security. This is just a case of saying that, look, at what point can we let our people know that tomorrow will be better? Please, whatever little you have today, don't believe that it will finish before you get another one. And that governance is going to be done right so that everybody will be fine. Because again, you know that 5,000 people can ground the country. 5,000 out of 200,000 can ground the country.
How?
Like happened in the case of NSAS, who were the guys, And before you knew it, it became a national thing. 5,000 people coming out to say that we want to cause trouble will become unmanageable. Even 1,000 people, they'll become unmanageable, and if the police starts to shoot, it becomes a global issue.
But aren't we also creating the environment, the enabling environment? When people are poor, when people are unemployed, when people have...
Mind you, that people are poor in every country. People are unemployed in every country. What I'm actually getting at is to say that, please, in some ways, we trying to sound academic or sound enlightened, we encourage the actions of some of those people, which luckily we're not one of them, but we encourage the action. Oh, people are poor, people are hungry, therefore, should people go out and loot?
Nobody is encouraging criminality anyway.
Exactly, it's criminal. So, but however, I'm saying that we also need to have a very serious dialogue in terms of understanding the minds of our people. Because again, let's take the historical perspective. We were here until the white man came and colonized us and introduced an economic system which we were not used to. Therefore, by the time they were leaving, we were already poor. We were generationally poor. Even though that time it was a bit maxed, because in 1960, a lot of people were staying in the villages and all of that, more than people that were in the urban area. But they were hearing that people were driving cars in the urban area, so people left the villages and moved to the urban area, and the problem exposed itself for what it is. So how quickly do you want to get out of a generational problem, which is increasing? That many of our people have abandoned the farms now to be driving Okada, the young ones, or to move to the city.
Perhaps because there is no incentives.
Incentive to stay, exactly. So when you talk about that... You
expect someone to go to farm when he doesn't have the wherewithal, no logistics,
it's not just
no support, no fertilizer.
It's not just incentive, sir. It's not just incentive. It's also the fact that information flow is much more seamless these days. People are seeing, in those days, about 40 years ago, when your friend goes abroad, you can only send you what they call postcards. Postcard, this is me standing in front of the big men in southwest London. But now everybody is seeing in real life. You go to any ghetto, the first thing you see the sea of DSTV, what's it called, the antennas and so on.
Yeah.
So everybody,
we're living in the global living room.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, we are now totally exposed. We are seeing what's going on in the other side of the world. We are not eager to wait for our country to get to that point, however, gradually, and we're ready to say, let's bring it all down. Even before it gets an opportunity.
Well, government has a responsibility. You talked about, if I understand what you're trying to, the narrative you want to push is that the Tinubu government is a listening government. It has realized that some of these liberal policies are not to be taking hook, line, and sinker. There is need to tinker with them along the line, and perhaps stepping back, meaning, drawing a line. Okay, we can't allow this to continue and all of that. So far, Nigerians, when they come to appraise, if you like, or assess these policies, to them, it is not working because they haven't seen the impact. I don't know if, as an economic advisor to the president, you've seen impact of this policy, very top policy, on the ordinary citizens.
Thus far, you'll probably be able to measure more of some of the negative impacts. You talk about poverty, you talk about inflation, but I think I can also assure you that in a very short period of time, you begin to see the positive impact. When inflation begins to drop in Nigeria, it will also drop like a rock, I predict.
Like the naira is recovering?
It will drop very fast, yes. Because you can see it all around us now. All the prices are going down. And what is inflation? Inflation is that marginal increases in price. It's going to come to a point where you may find it difficult to find the marginal increases in any price because there's just no need. People are maxed out. And part of what we're saying also in terms of controlling inflation is not just a case of following the textbook to say, let's continue to increase interest rates so that inflation may fall. It's also a case that Nigerians should come together and say, for example, we need to protect ourselves. If you can see what the FCCPC is doing, moving around and all of that. The Nigerians too can do that themselves, to say, you argue more with those people who are selling things to you. It's not everybody that stocked up when prices, when the rate was 1,900. People are still selling very, very old stock. However, given the pretext that the naira has fallen and all of that, you now have to tell them that the naira has gained back, so that continuous interaction between the people, between the buyers and the sellers, will assist in bringing down the inflation.
But is it the way to go? Perhaps we said we're operating a liberal economy.
Nobody
open
said
market
that.
Economy.
Did I actually say? I didn't say that with you. I think the pretext
but
of
we
our
all know
discussion,
that in Nigeria there's no price control. People,
we're not controlling prices. We're saying that people should be able to argue better, be able to negotiate better. And also the activities of the FCCPC is not saying they want to go and control prices. They're saying that there's a concept called, price gouging. There's a concept called, when you're cheating the consumers and all of that. Consumer protection is real. So please, we have to allow them to do their job. And also, it's also part of the idea of getting the correct data in the market. For example, on farm products, there was a time the Ministry of Agri said, look, there was so much of our food just leaving the country for cheap because our currency had become very cheap compared to the CFA. We're all surrounded by all these CFA countries, Francophone countries.
Yes.
So it is in order for the Agri Ministry to know how fertile is our land, what are the products that are coming from our land and all of that, and where are they going? It's valid. It's all part of getting data.
Yeah, but isn't it an opportunity that should have been, maximized where necessary? If perhaps
you need time
we
to
invest
maximize it. Yes.
Because bottom line is we have to be productive. So if we're not productive, how can we address some of these challenges we are talking about? We have to rely perhaps on importation and all of that.
I'm not sure it is true that we're not productive at all.
When are we producing, for instance? Even the crude oil.
Let's talk about the concept of productivity. What I'm doing right here is productive. Coming to your show to talk to people. What you're doing is productive. What your cameraman is doing is productive. That's productivity. In terms of productivity, you can only talk in terms of achieving more productivity, better productivity. You understand? In terms of, and when you want to talk about what they call economic complexity, adding value to the things that we produce. Our farmers are productive. Okay, all over the nation.
But are they competitive?
But the point is whether they are adding value. Now, in terms of adding value to what they produce, which is the concept of economic complexity, the issue would then be, how do we achieve it? We seem to be, most of Africa, if not the whole of Africa, seem to be locked into a certain scenario where we can only import the machinery that we need to process our food, to preserve them, to can them, to take them to a second, third
Do we
level.
have any option, since we don't have the technology?
The second option is we may need to develop the technology from the scratch, which seems like a long shot. And like they say, you know, you can't reinvent the wheel. The wheel is round, the wheel is round. You know what I'm saying? So to a large extent, but yes, so that's it. We can talk about the concept of increasing our productivity, getting it to that competitive level where we can compete with the world. Minding the fact that the world itself is also still increasing its own productivity, except we're talking about a certain kind of apocalyptic scenario, like maybe happened in Dubai recently, where maybe innovation of seeding the clouds backfired on them.
Rain,
But we don't expect that it will all backfire. Europe itself is slowing down in some respect, and this also gives opportunity to countries like Africa. We have benefited a bit from the interaction from China, but mind you, very few countries, if any, would actually begin to give away their technology to you, except many times some of them actually stole the technology and all of that. So that's a different discussion entirely in terms of, well, we are productive, but we need to be more productive.
Are we creating the enabling environment? Because this is also fundamental.
Absolutely.
For instance, let's look at the figures. A number of businesses have been folding up. Manufacturing Association of Nigeria is talking about 767 operations, shutting down within 1 year. Just yesterday or today, the top manufacturers are also talking about losing, a whooping sum of 266 billion naira.
I would want to advise you. See, if you go in the press and the media, all you're doing, you're foraging for the bad news. You're going to come up with us.
No, not the bad news.
But mind you, the fact that it's not the reality, it's the bad news. And of course, they said no. Somehow, you guys that are in the media, every news seems to be bad news. If the MAN says that there are 760-something companies closed down, did you ask them how many companies have opened? Do you know that some of the biggest and the best companies around the world are opened in the middle of recession? Do you know, as we speak, people are coming up with the best ideas and opening their companies? You see, so if you are getting that other side of the data, you have to get this side of the data to balance things out.
Why is the government not providing, if actually it's there?
That's part of the reason I'm here, and I'm telling you that I'm sending you in that direction now. In fact, the thing about, the Manufacturing Association, they've said their own beat. They can only talk about those they know, those people who registered with them. It's not everybody that's producing something that registered with MAN. Some people don't like the idea of unions. They just want to do their thing and go. But you see, we have to be careful. Again,
the top manufacturers also lying. They're talking about 266 billion.
Just a second, and I'll get to that. Again, I'm just saying that, look, this whole idea, it's easy to just hang it on government and say, oh, our members have closed down. They should go get new members, and they realize that they probably will get even more new members than the ones that are closing. Even when a company has internal issues and closes, they hang it on Nigeria, and it's very unfair, and it must be said here, even when companies like Procter & Gamble closed and left, GlaxoSmithKline after 51 years and so on. We didn't go to check. GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi, they made a bet on the COVID drug and they lost. Number two, some of them had patents that had expired, meaning that if you are producing a certain product, now you don't have that protection and that patent to continue producing alone. Anybody can do that, and they reassess themselves. And some of those companies had started closing down since 2017 in other African countries, going into a distribution kind of business rather than that company. Are we saying that we are forgotten that companies are born and companies die, just as human beings? And we pin it on Nigeria, which I think what I'm saying in essence is, whether on the matter of poverty, we should be a bit more circumspect. Whether on the subject of these companies closed down, we should be also circumspect in terms of what we pin on Nigeria. Look, this country has suffered too much in the hands of the same Nigerians, me and you. And when we think about it, I'm telling you about Nigerians being stranded abroad. These are Nigerians that were trained for next to nothing in Nigerian universities, but we don't appreciate our country. And when we go abroad, we now realize that, look, there's a different kind of world out there where there's no mercy. That's the truth.
Yeah, okay.
So to a large extent, as you forage those news, also look at the other side. And when those people push out those as well, they should also give us the other side of the equation. Nigerians, for example, do you know what young Nigerians are doing, online, how much they're making from YouTube, from Google and Co. YouTube alone paid $50 billion to content creators within 3 years, 2021, 2, and 3. $50 billion. And quite a number of Nigerian young people are content creators on YouTube, and the point is nobody will tell you how much they made from there. Nobody. But when you see it manifested, now they're trying to ban people spraying money, but you see the way people spend money every weekend in Nigeria, that money is coming from somewhere. So we have to balance the narrative.
Okay, we're also looking at the positive side. That's why we are looking at the recovery of the Naira and some of the positive signs. It is not all about losses, but we have to take a break, and when we return, we'll continue with the conversation. In case you're just joining us, I've been interfacing with Dr. Tope Fasua, the special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic matters in the office of the Vice President. Together we'll be looking at the Tinubunomics, and then we're looking at the deliverables. We'll take a break. When we return, our conversation continues. Stay with us.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Still daily politics, and here we are looking at the Tinubunomics, and then we're looking at the appraising, if you like, the deliverables. And I have in the studio Dr. Tope Fasua. He is the special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic matters in the office of the Vice President. Okay, you were talking about the comparative analysis, and then also just opposing some of the gains, of these reforms that we're talking about. But many believe, subjecting the stopgap measures of this government, also there is a consensus that they might not be working. Let's take them one after the other. The government is looking at palliatives, as a stopgap measure to address, the impact of the subsidy removal. But it doesn't seem to be working, At some point, it talked about 5 billion naira to the state, which was not realistic. I understand only 2 billion was given. That's to some states. And then looking at even the grain palliative, if you do an analysis or a calculation, you will come to realize that if at all you want to share it among the 200 million Nigerians, or those below the multidimensional poverty line, 163 thereabout, they may end up with 1 cup of grain. So how does this sustain them?
Okay, well, I think the argument has moved beyond the issue of palliative. Remember that there was a kind of slowdown to the NSIP and removal of a minister and all of that, so which actually made everybody to say, let's track back and see how this can work. And the government is actually having to rework it, so that the thing with palliative is that you don't want there to be too much waste in the system, for that to work. The truth is that also palliatives are a continual thing. It's not just for a period of time. And in every country it is done, even giving out raw food. I was watching one of those COVID-era movies, clips on my Facebook page recently. I saw where the UK government was sending food to people, raw food, during the COVID era and so on. So for them, because they've been through all of that history, that was the time that they needed to do that. And there was also a time they were sending out checks back to people. And that was when some Nigerian boys, actually, they call themselves benefit boys, they found ways of waylaying those checks and diverting to different accounts. One of the Nigerians called Hush Puppies, one of those people in that era, So the idea of palliative is a continual thing. It's not, I think it's not too correct for you to just say, okay, how much is this a palliative, divide by the number of people that are poor, they will get only one, whatever. That's not the way to do it, because you then need to question.
Because we're interested in the results.
You said 163 million. Well, I have many issues with your own data, but try not to be sensational.
This is not my own data.
Try not to be sensational. 163 million people sitting at home waiting for. Even if you check my past writing, you see that even the entire concept of 210 million Nigerians had cause to question it based on the last political numbers, where we only found 24 million people to vote out of the so-called 210 million. Perhaps politics.
It is so-called. Looking at the rate at which we are growing.
Perhaps politics has actually led to too much of padding of numbers in that direction, which also may create a problem such as believing that the 163 million Nigerians are poor. I think that in time, and using technology, we'll be able to find something closer to the accurate numbers of people who are poor in Nigeria, even our population and what have you. So what I have to say on that palliative thing is that it's a continual thing. When government brings out grains, for example, government is not bringing out grains to start chasing 163 million people. They may say, okay, let us target it at the lowest 10% poor people, so that it can be something substantial to them. So that the next batch of inspiration we have will also, and however, the point is this, let's also ask ourselves, how many Nigerians are at that base who their entire survival depends on how much they get from government? What about our so-called social capital in Nigeria, whereby we are known to be a people where you are working in the city, you remember your parents in the village, or you remember your auntie, your uncle in the village, you send something home. And I think there's been a whole lot of that.
How many of such savings can you find in an atmosphere where people cannot even, salaries cannot even take them home?
No, we're not talking about just mere salary earners. Those who have, and mind you, again, part of what we are seeing is that salary earners are not the people driving the economy. That's part of what has emerged, that there's been a lot of people making money from other means, business people. There's somebody bringing out all of these rights that are being shared, right? There's somebody bringing all of these provisions. They're marking up their money. They mark it up and ensure they cover for inflation. They're making tremendous amounts of money. So it depends also on where one wants to stand and who you want to see and who you want to associate with. Do you want to constantly be in the middle of those who are complaining about, or do you want to go and this is for our youth. Do you want to go out there and forage and go afar? The other time I was telling a bunch of people, I've been to Gombe State and come back, and I said, look, there's a lot going on up north, there's a lot going on in Gombe, Jigawa. I tell some of my friends, younger friends in the south, look, if you have opportunity in those places, forget some of these stories you are hearing. Go and change your destiny. Of course, a few of them say, I don't want to go and die, sir. Is it that in every state in the north of Nigeria, everybody is dying? Which is not true. So it also depends on the narrative we're putting out. If we are sowing fear in the hearts of our people, if we are sowing poverty and despair, then what you get is this. But I think we need to change that.
But this is part of the enabling environment we are talking about. Here we are trying to get people to invest within the country, believe in Nigeria and also invest in different regions outside where they stay. And then also we're trying to woo investors to come into the country. But insecurity is one fundamental problem. Two, power deficit is also another challenge.
You know that the insecurity problem is improving, do you know? Have you done your little survey to think about it? Do you know that? Can you agree with me that the bandit problem in Zamfara has reduced in the last 2-3 months?
What are the statistics?
Yes. All you have to do is scan. Check, bring the Daily Trust newspaper for the last 1 week, and let's look at it and see whether the bandits are coming in to raid like they used to, 100 people from the villages of Zamfara and Sokoto State.
It's still happening
it's reducing, and you can only exactly what you see, and that's where we're agreeing that look, these problems seem to have shifted to Kaduna and Jos in recent times.
But the same axis,
No, not the same axis. That's not central, sir. That's not central.
That of
so wait. Yeah. Except you are foraging. I'm just trying to be nice. If you are foraging for bad news, you will see bad news. But I'm telling you that what you need to do is this: just be objective. Okay? Boko Haram seems to have quieted down in the northeast. True or false? True or false?
Nigerians.
True or false?
Well, I should ask you.
You are not about to
I should be
agree.
able to ask you that question.
In the southeast, they're now going out on Monday. True or false?
Yeah, I pop by question, you know.
You're afraid to say true.
Well,
You're afraid to say true. And you know what? At the end of the day, you know, I was also where you were sitting as an interviewer, you know, in this news channel, you know. So, but the point is this, let's be objective. We have only one Nigeria.
Yeah.
This is our country. And I'm telling you that even you're talking about enabling environment.
Yeah,
I'm not one of those who like to use those highfalutin grammar. Let's break it down. So you mentioned security. And I'm telling you that security has improved in Nigeria marginally. Because again, here we are. In the US that you run to, that everybody runs to, 30,000 people get killed in gun violence every year. But if they gave us a free visa today, we'll be gone. Almost the whole of Nigeria. Perception, the media. As we're speaking now, God forbid, almost every day people go into cinemas, they shoot everybody dead, they go crazy. And all. In the US, they call it God's own country. We think that the country is better than ours. I know Nigerians who will wake up and pray for the US, but not for Nigeria.
Well, that's high.
So
high
this colonial mentality or whatever, we have to get rid of it. So, for example, on the matter of security, I can tell you that marginally, security has improved in Nigeria.
Okay.
Even in the southwest, where I'm from, we used to have a point where there was a spate of kidnapping on a daily basis. It has reduced. I'm not saying it doesn't exist again.
Okay.
So you as a media person, all you have to do is just follow the trend. You know, so you follow the trend and follow the news, and you know, and you'll be able to see the pattern of what's going on. So right now, I hope that we're able to solve what seems to be going on around Kaduna and now Jos. But even it's kind of, we are now seeing that it's coming to a certain smaller axis where we can manage things.
Okay.
So which other
we're dealing with
is you know
it's optimism. We're talking about you know power, you know,
power,
which is critical to
Is
industrialization.
critical. But I think that we are going to the worst scenario. We went through the worst scenario about a few weeks ago, really, when the water levels were too low. The minister was in the country, and I think secondly, when the naira was 1,009 to the dollar, that put pressure. You know that the electricity is charged out to is benchmarked to the dollar as well. So the generating companies, everybody was complaining that they were not getting the requisite amount of money for their work. And that was when the minister we had to go to this band A, band B issue and all of that. But now that
adding to the situation, because you're dealing with a precarious power sector situation, and then you're also pushing the cost on ordinary, you know.
No, that's what I'm. No. See, the point is this: what the generating companies generate is what they generate. When the agreement they have, whatever they generate, they get paid for it. If you don't pay them for it, they won't generate, and everything breaks down. However, so somebody has to pay for it, which is the consumer or the government. So at some point, the government said, look, what we're paying is equivalent to 2.9 trillion every year. We cannot cope with what we are paying to these guys to continue to finance the entire structure. You know, but I think that it is also going to force us to begin to make some other different kind of decisions. In fact, you know, there are many families now who have totally opted out of government electricity.
Is that a good news? Or,
why not? It's a good. It's not such a bad news. The truth is this.
But at what cost?
We're not supposed to be stuck on this national grid thing.
At what cost?
See, the whole idea. No.
The solar panel
is forcing us to think differently, and I think that is very valid. Because the whole idea of we're sitting down in a village somewhere in Ondo State, expecting the government to generate power from Kanji to distribute to the whole country, is an anachronistic idea. In fact, in parts of the United States and other parts of the world, in Europe, they are walking away from the national grid. They are beginning to leave the national grid to say, you know what, captive energy is the way to go. Let's have something smaller that's more manageable. In Nigeria now, we're beginning to hear that the states may soon begin to take charge of their own electricity. Exactly. So you see, they said it's darkest before daybreak. So anytime you see problem pushing us to that direction, a new thinking will come. And I think that is where we're going. And look, we are going to look. Let me tell you. So all of us are guilty to a certain extent. I was moving from Uyo to Eket one night recently. I was trying to head to Eket to go to Cross River State the next day. And in all of the villages, in a place like Akwa Ibom, where it's the richest state in Nigeria, in all of the villages that we moved through passing through that back road, there was no light in any of them. And I was thinking, are they not Nigerians as well? Right. You know, so what solution do you think will help those people in those dark villages in Akwa Ibom or in your state where you're from? National grid will not help them.
Exactly.
What
decentralization is the
two things
best way
will
to go.
help them. Decentralization. And two, experimental energy. If you are from Katsina State, for example, let the students, which state are you from?
In the wind, they've been taking the wind option.
Wind option, for example. Let me tell you who should do it. Students of Umar Musa Yar'Adua University in Katsina, engineering students, should be the ones going from one village to the other, the Katsina Polytechnic, all of those things. And that's it. That is we solving our own problem rather than waiting for Siemens or waiting for General Electric to come and solve our problem for us.
Now that we're gradually getting out of the shock, so to speak, you know, many analysts believe that there is need for government to look at long-term measures. The forex unification, the subsidy removal will largely enable us. There is need to look at the fundamentals, you know, reducing inflation, you know, low-level unemployment, you know, incentivizing productivity and all of that. How much of this are we doing going forward?
So inflation, like I told you, will start to drop like a rock. I can assure you, you know, because I also do my own research. I get my own
Just like you broke the news that the dollar would crash, and it's crashing.
Did I? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, at some point I heard you talking about it.
Yes.
That those speculators should dispose their dollars.
I can assure you, I'm a very honest, patriotic economist.
So you're also prophesizing that the inflation will start
inflation
dropping.
will drop like a rock.
Okay.
Chances are that by the end of this month, you begin to see the numbers.
Okay.
That's one. And, you know, that's the whole idea. See, again, nothing goes up forever. So it gets to a point you have to draw the line and say, you know what, enough already. You know, so, you know, we have to begin to recover. Right. In terms of unemployment, do you know that actually the gains of the last few months is that Nigerians are now thinking local? Yeah. I know a few of my friends who have called me that say, listen, please, I need the digits of the local university that your children went to. You know, I said, why not if not? You know, so these are people who would have sent their children abroad. They're sending them to local universities now. You know, call it private, but it works. I mean, there's even one nursery school that came, some British people came and formed one nursery school in Lagos where they're charging people 42 million naira. Because they also are seeing that, look, if something is changing, and I could see a University of Sunderland, just late last week, the VC complaining and also begging Nigerians to please not stop coming to their university. Now the UK university, a lot of them are almost declaring bankruptcies now because Nigerians aren't going there anymore. Let's reverse it. Nothing lasts forever. Perhaps this is the way Nigeria will emerge. You know, and I want you to begin to see it under this President Tinubu's regime. Okay. You know, that we can begin to, so when that happens, unemployment will reduce because we're creating opportunities here for people to thrive. Let us focus on our own country. Let us use the naira to build our country. Okay. You can see that now it's no longer fashionable for people to be buying dollar and keeping. Those who bought at 1,009 don't know what to do with themselves now. Okay. And even when you now add the fact that the EFCC is moving against those who are spraying dollar, I see now they have started spraying text. They send you the money, they will show you and say, I've sent you 50,000. Why are you dancing on?
Perhaps thanks to the EFCC and all of that. Okay.
So things are changing.
Let's look at, I don't know, very quickly, you know, what the government is also not doing right. And a lot of people believe that there's a lot of fiscal recklessness on the part of government in terms of spending.
I disagree.
In terms of spending. Let's look at the figures again. Okay. You know, very, very quickly, especially in this 2024 budget. Just recently, there was a discovery that about 920.301 billion naira, you know, was budgeted as miscellaneous.
Which
in the entire budget, you know.
I don't know. National budget or
the national budget. The national budget.
120 billion.
Yes. 920. You know.
You have to, 920. That means you have to get to the root of it. There'll be notes to the budget that can explain what.
Again, the GOEs, for instance, we're said to have earmarked 80.9 billion naira for welfare.
For welfare, maybe
for just budget.
Maybe welfare includes their salaries. It may include their salary. And when you talk about GOEs, you're talking of the MPAs of this world, those ones that are generating MPAs and the masses of this world. NCAAs of this world and so on. These are top paying.
But looking at the figures,
I don't know.
Should this be allowed to continue?
Wait, you cannot cut their salaries. You may not be able to cut their salaries. Matter of fact, I was in one discussion recently where this came up, and part of the International Labour Organization concept is that when you pay a man 50,000, you may not take that 50,000. You cannot reduce his salary. So when you are talking about the real discussion we're having that day is, should we have a reduction in the salary of all of those GOEs so that they can begin to match up with what the core ministries are collecting, because there's that unbridgeable gap between the two, whatever. So the best you can do is increase the salary of those who are in the ministry while you leave this one as is. So I don't know the basis of that.
The spendings,
but let me tell you
in the right direction, because
I don't believe
beyond even the budget, we've seen money is being expended on buying, purchasing cars, building, and all of that, renovations and what have you. And in a situation where a country economy is in dire straits and there is need to channel resources.
What I can tell you is that there's a lot more financial frugality in this administration. This is a government of auditors and accountants. If you look at number one man is an auditor, is an accountant. Number two man is a banker, a Greek economist, my humble self, not talk of Mr. Cardoso, Mr. Edu, all of those. We're all accountants. And what we do is that we're all very careful what we spend. Remember, you see this budget, a budget is a budget. Whether it will be actualized in this manner is a different. Now, what determines whether it's actualized is also the mentality of the people who are running the economy. So when you are bringing a frivolous thing that bounces, for example, the president said, okay, going forward, when I'm traveling, I don't want more than 20 people with me, okay? So that's something.
From the previous...
yes, and the VP has 5 people. My boss, the vice president, went to Davos. In January, inside that terrible code of Davos, he had 5 people with him. Is security detail that will be cooking Indomie for him? So the point is this, so 5 people. What are you talking about? So it's not as if everybody is in government just doing anything that they like and just spending money freely, So if you look here now, I drove myself to this place with my own car. And it's not as if I'm under pressure to get any from government. I've never written any memo that I want one. So nobody has approached me.
What you're saying is that there's prudence in managing the resource.
Exactly, there's prudence in managing the resource. It may not be perfect. The problem with government is that government is a behemoth. While you're pulling on this side, another person is pushing on this side. You have to manage the mentality of people. What created that impression, actually, unfortunately, was when the National Assembly guys went for their own cars. And you see, the National Assembly legislature is different from the executive. The president wisely said, you know what, I will not interfere in what these guys are doing. And you remember that many of the guys in the National Assembly, some of them are coming, some of them, they're hard guys. I'm sure you've interacted with them. You cannot tell them not to get their benefit. But I think that it's getting better. With more vigilance from people like you, it will get even better for the country.
Okay, thank you. On that positive note, we have to come to the end of the program.
Cheers.
I understand time has been past spent. Thank you very much, Dr. Tope Fasua, for talking to us on daily politics.
Thank you very much.
And Nigerians, here we are with the Tinubunomics and the deliverables. There is hope in the horizon, as Tope has said. Sorry.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much, and be sure to join Daily Politics live airing every weekday. And on Friday, on our special package, where we open the telephone lines for you to comment on national issues. Once again, I'm Shafiu Suleiman. Thanks for staying with us.